"I wish I could marry her," I said. The princess turned and said, "I accept." Ethan Cole had never thought he would meet someone like Princess Salira. He had worked as a junior human liaison for a few years now, mostly moving between space stations and small embassies. He liked his work, but it was quiet, and humans were not considered very important in galactic politics. Most people saw humans as young, fragile, and untrained for real diplomacy. Ethan did not think of himself as fragile, but he knew his people were underestimated almost everywhere they went. That made him angry sometimes, but it also gave him a strange kind of pride. The first time he saw Princess Salira, she was standing in the center of the embassy hall, surrounded by lights that glimmered like stars. Her presence was quiet but strong. She did not need guards shouting or machines making alarms. She had that kind of power that did not feel dangerous but made people listen anyway. Ethan had never seen anything like it. Even among the many species he had met, none made him feel small and large at the same time. He was not supposed to meet her directly. Junior liaisons were there to observe and take notes, not speak to royalty. But that day, something strange happened. The embassy hall was quieter than usual because of a minor security alert. Many officials had left their posts, and only a few were left inside. Ethan was taking notes on some documents when he heard a soft voice behind him. "Are you Ethan Cole?" He turned, surprised, and saw the princess herself. Her eyes were like a calm sea, deep and still, and they seemed to look straight into him. His throat went dry. I am," he managed to say. She nodded slightly, almost as if she had expected it. "You are human," she said simply. "Yes, I am," he replied. He did not know why he felt nervous. He had met many aliens in his life. None had made his heart beat like this. "I have watched humans for some time," she continued. "You are different from what I expected." Ethan blinked. "Different?" "Yes," she said. "There is something in you, something that is alive and strong. Most humans are young and small in the galaxy. You have a presence." He wanted to say something smart, something that would show her he was not afraid, but the words did not come. Instead, he laughed nervously. "I'm just me," he said. "You are more than that," she replied, smiling slightly. It was a small smile, but it was enough to make his heart skip a beat. For the next few minutes, they walked through the quiet halls of the embassy. No one else was there, and the princess spoke softly, asking about humans, about Earth, and about his life. Ethan answered honestly, not thinking about how strange it was that he was talking to royalty. He had always believed humans had no place in galactic courts. But now, he was walking beside one, answering her questions, feeling like a person instead of a statistic. At one point, they reached a balcony that looked out at space. The stars stretched endlessly, and Ethan felt a wave of both fear and wonder. He looked at her, and she seemed to notice the change in his expression. "Do you ever feel small?" she asked quietly. "All the time," he admitted. "Humans are not very important out here. We are slow to learn, slow to react. Most species are stronger, faster, smarter. I sometimes feel like I don't belong." She looked at him with seriousness. "I have seen enough species to know that strength is not only measured in speed or size. Sometimes it is measured in courage, sometimes in patience, and sometimes in the heart." He felt a warmth spread through him. No one had ever said something like that to him, especially not someone so important. He wanted to tell her that she was right, but words felt too small. Instead, he just nodded. The silence stretched, but it was not uncomfortable. They watched the stars together. Ethan did not know why, but he felt that in this moment, the galaxy was not big enough to hold all the possibilities in his mind. He wanted to say something, something that would mark this moment forever, but his mind struggled to find the words. Finally, without thinking, he spoke. "I wish I could marry you." The words came out quickly, almost as a whisper, but they hung in the air like a comet's tail. Ethan immediately regretted it. He had just said something that could get him expelled or worse, laughed at by millions of people across the galaxy. His face burned. He opened his mouth to take it back, to say it was a joke, but the words froze on his tongue. Princess Sailira turned to look at him. Her expression did not change. She did not laugh. She did not seem angry. She simply looked at him with those calm, deep eyes, and then she said softly, "I accept." The words struck Ethan like lightning. His knees felt weak. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. He thought he had misheard her. Maybe it was some strange joke he did not understand. But her gaze was steady and she repeated, "I accept." Ethan stumbled backward slightly. You mean you are serious?" "Yes," she said simply. "I have watched humans. I have studied your ways. You are brave, honest, and your heart is strong. I accept your wish." The quiet halls of the embassy suddenly felt smaller. Ethan's mind spun. He wanted to shout, to laugh, to cry, all at the same time. But he did none of those things. Instead, he just stood there staring at the princess, feeling as if the stars themselves had moved closer. How is this possible?" he asked finally. Princess Sailira tilted her head slightly. "The vow I made to myself long ago allows me to accept a choice that is true and pure. If your wish is sincere, it cannot be ignored." Ethan shook his head, trying to understand. He had never heard of such a thing. Humans had nothing like this. He was just a simple liaison, one of the youngest humans in the galactic records, and yet, somehow, he had been given a choice that could change everything. The thought made him dizzy. He looked out at the stars again. For the first time, he felt that humanity was not small, not weak. Somehow, his presence had mattered. Somehow, his heart had been noticed. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Because you are honest," she said simply. "Because you do not hide from your feelings. Because you do not pretend to be what you are not. That is rare among your species, and rarer still among all the species I have observed." Ethan felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. He had never felt so small and so large at the same time. He had never imagined that his life could change like this. A simple wish, spoken quietly, had led to something no one could have predicted. But even as joy filled him, fear crept in. The Galactic Council would not understand. Other species would laugh. Humans would not know what to make of it. And yet here he stood with a princess who had chosen him, and for the first time Ethan believed in the impossible. I don't know what to say," he admitted. "You need not say anything," she replied. "What matters is that your wish was real and I accepted it. That is enough." They stood together on the balcony for a long time, neither speaking. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but for once Ethan did not feel small. He felt alive. He felt important. And for the first time, he allowed himself to dream of a future that was bigger than any human had imagined. The quiet night passed, and when the first light of the orbital station's artificial sun touched the glass walls, Ethan realized that nothing in his life would ever be the same. The simple words he had spoken in a moment of honesty had changed the course of history for himself and for his people. He did not yet know what challenges awaited him. He did not know how the council would react or what dangers lurked in the galaxy. But for that moment, none of that mattered. He had spoken his truth, and Princess Sailira, a being of immense power and wisdom, had accepted him for who he was. As he left the balcony, he looked back at her one last time. She smiled, a small but powerful smile, and in that smile, Ethan felt the weight of 1,000 stars and the promise of 1,000 more. Humanity might be small. Humans might be young in the galaxy. But in that moment, with a simple wish and an unbroken heart, Ethan Cole understood that humans were capable of being chosen, capable of being seen, and capable of standing beside royalty as equals. The embassy hall no longer felt quiet. It was alive with possibility. And somewhere deep inside him, Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. The news of Ethan Cole's wish and Princess Sailira's acceptance spread faster than fire across the galaxy. Ethan could hardly believe it himself. One moment he was a simple human liaison, unnoticed and underestimated. The next, his life had changed completely. Messages poured in from every corner of the galactic communication network. Some were filled with astonishment. Some were filled with laughter. Some were filled with disbelief, and others with outright anger. Humans had never been considered for anything important in the political halls of the galaxy, and now, one had been chosen by a princess of the Aurelian Conquered, a powerful empire older than most species alive today. At first, Ethan tried to ignore it. He continued his daily tasks at the embassy as if nothing had happened, but it was impossible. Everywhere he went, he felt eyes on him. Some looked curious, some looked skeptical, and some looked downright hostile. The other liaisons avoided him, unsure how to act around someone suddenly famous, someone now tied to royalty. Alien diplomats whispered behind closed doors, some laughing, some frowning, some shaking their heads in confusion. Ethan noticed it all. He noticed the way ambassadors leaned back when he entered a room, the way servants and guards exchanged quick glances, and the way even the smallest species seemed to pause in his presence. It made him nervous, but it also made him proud. Humans had always been underestimated, but now, even without doing anything, he had made the galaxy notice them. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the situation. Leaders from dozens of species crowded into the great circular chamber, their voices rising and falling in waves of outrage, curiosity, and disbelief. They debated endlessly. How could a human, barely recognized by the council, be allowed to marry a princess of the Aurelian Conquered? Some called it absurd. Some said it was a political trick. Others feared it might be a trap to weaken the council's influence. Ethan watched from a secure observation room, accompanied by Princess Sailira. She stood beside him quietly, her calm presence reassuring him even as the voices of the galaxy erupted around them. "Do not worry about what they say," she told him. "They are used to power measured in fleets, armies, and wealth. They are not used to power measured in honesty, in courage, or in choice." Ethan nodded, trying to absorb her words. He wanted to be brave, but a small part of him wondered if she was right. Was he really ready for this? Humans were strong in some ways, but they were young and fragile compared to other species. Could he survive the attention, the scrutiny, the jealousy, and the doubt that now followed him everywhere? The council's debate lasted for hours. Ethan listened to their arguments through a secure translation link. Some species said humans were too inexperienced to understand the responsibilities of royalty. Some said the vow Sailira had invoked was invalid because it could not apply to humans. Others laughed openly, calling it the most ridiculous thing they had ever witnessed in galactic history. But not everyone doubted him. A few council members watched quietly, intrigued. They had seen hints of human resilience in past conflicts, glimpses of courage that went unnoticed because humans were small and scattered. Now, with one human standing beside a princess, they had to consider the possibility that maybe humans were more than they appeared. While the council argued, Ethan tried to keep himself busy. He reviewed documents, made notes, and prepared for his next duties, but the truth was impossible to ignore. He was now at the center of something enormous, something far bigger than any human had ever faced. And for the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The next day, the council announced their decision. Ethan would be allowed to continue his engagement to Princess Sailira, but he would need to prove himself through a series of traditional trials. These trials were meant to test loyalty, courage, intelligence, and endurance. They had been used for centuries to select members of noble families and to determine whether a chosen partner could hold up under pressure. For a human to survive these trials was unheard of. Most species laughed at the idea before dismissing it as impossible. When Ethan first heard the news, he felt a wave of fear. The trials were known to be brutal, often pushing the strongest and most trained nobles to their limits. Humans had never faced anything like them. But as he looked at Princess Sailira standing calmly by his side, he realized that fear alone could not control him. He had spoken his truth, and now he had to live up to it. The first trial was physical. He would have to navigate an obstacle course designed to test strength, balance, and endurance. Creatures from several species had failed this trial, their bodies too weak or too rigid to complete it. Ethan approached the course cautiously. It was not just a matter of strength. The course required problem-solving, quick thinking, and adaptability, all areas where humans excelled, even if other species dismissed them. He began the trial slowly, watching the moving platforms, swinging ropes, and shifting barriers. Every step required focus. His muscles ached, and his body screamed with exhaustion, but he kept going. He slipped once, nearly falling into a pit of simulated fire, but he recovered, gripping a rope and swinging to the next platform. Observers murmured in surprise. Humans were not supposed to have this kind of endurance. Hours passed, and Ethan pressed on. The trial seemed endless, designed to break even the strongest of competitors. But he found strength in unexpected places. He remembered Earth training exercises, stories of explorers and soldiers, and the countless small challenges humans faced every day. Step by step, he moved forward. The audience watched in stunned silence as the human approached the final platform. With one last push, he completed the trial, panting but victorious. The next trial was mental. The council presented him with puzzles and riddles meant to challenge the mind. Some were mathematical, some were strategic, and some were designed to confuse even the wisest. Humans were often considered slow in reasoning compared to older species, but Ethan found himself thinking in ways that were flexible and creative. He approached each puzzle calmly, breaking them down into simple steps, and solving problems in ways that impressed even the judges. By the end of the mental trial, murmurs spread through the council chamber. They had expected a human to fail, but here he was, proving that intelligence did not always come from age or size. It could come from persistence, creativity, and observation. Ethan felt a quiet pride. He was not trying to prove human superior. He was only trying to survive, to honor the princess who had chosen him, and to show that humans deserved to be seen. The final trial was emotional. The council had prepared a scenario meant to test loyalty and courage under extreme pressure. They simulated a threat to Princess Sailira's safety, a crisis where the outcome would seem impossible to control. Most participants broke under the stress, faltering, hesitating, or running from danger. Ethan stood firm. He refused to let fear dictate his actions. He stayed calm, observed the situation, and acted with precision and determination. In the simulated scenario, he protected the princess and resolved the crisis with courage and clever thinking. After the trials, silence filled the chamber. The council members could not deny what they had seen. The human had survived trials designed to break species older and stronger than his own. He had proven courage, endurance, intelligence, and loyalty beyond expectation. They were forced to reconsider the place of humans in the galaxy. Ethan stood beside Princess Sailira, exhausted but triumphant. He looked at her and she smiled, the same calm smile that had accepted his wish. "You did well," she said softly. "I only followed my heart," he replied, feeling the weight of everything he had achieved. "You believed in me and that gave me strength," she nodded. "It is not just belief, it is recognition. Humans are underestimated, yes, but that does not mean they are weak. You have shown what is possible when the heart is true." The council finally issued a statement recognizing Ethan's trials as valid and confirming the engagement. It was a historic moment. Across the galaxy, species that had dismissed humans began to reconsider them. Diplomats, scholars, and military leaders studied the trials, trying to understand how a human had succeeded where others failed. Some grudgingly admitted that humans might be stronger than they had thought. Others laughed and shook their heads, unwilling to accept the possibility, but the proof was undeniable. Even on Earth, news of the engagement and the trial spread quickly. Humans celebrated quietly, proud of one of their own being recognized by a galactic princess. For once, humans were not overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed. They were being watched, studied, and, most importantly, respected. Ethan felt both pride and fear. The trials were over, but the challenges were only beginning. He would have to navigate the politics of the council, the expectations of the princess, and the reactions of countless species. Humans were now on the galactic stage, and he was their first representative in this unexpected role. At night, he would often stand alone in his quarters, looking at the stars. He thought of his home planet, the simple streets of his childhood, and the people who had never imagined him here. And yet, he was here. Chosen by a princess, tested by the council, and recognized by the galaxy. Humans might be young, small, and underestimated, but Ethan knew that they were capable of things no one expected. Princess Celira came to him often, offering guidance and quiet support. She never pressured him. She simply reminded him of the truth he had already proven. Courage, loyalty, and heart could change the galaxy. And as he walked beside her through the halls of the embassy, he felt that humans were no longer hidden in the shadows. They were being noticed, they were being tested, and they were surviving. Ethan realized something important. The galaxy would continue to challenge him, to doubt him, and to try to break him. But humans had something unique. They adapted, they endured. And most of all, they did not give up. He had learned that in the trials, and he carried it with him in every step he took. The days passed, and slowly, the whispers changed. What had begun as disbelief turned into curiosity. Some species began to approach Ethan cautiously at first to learn more about humans. Others watched from a distance, unsure whether to laugh or fear. But all of them knew one thing: a human had survived the impossible. Ethan Cole, once a quiet, unnoticed liaison, had become a symbol of what humans could be. And as he stood beside Princess Celira, he understood that his life, and the life of his species, had changed forever. The galaxy had begun to watch humans, and humans had begun to rise. After the trials, Ethan thought he could finally rest. The council had accepted him, the princess had stood by his side, and humans were finally being noticed. But he quickly realized that the real challenges had only just begun. Not all species were willing to accept a human as a partner to a princess. Many were angry, many were jealous, some wanted to see him fail. The first sign came in the form of formal challenges. A few members of the council demanded that Ethan undergo what they called the tests of the ancients. These tests were far older and more dangerous than the trials he had already completed. They had been designed to push the strongest nobles to their limits and to weed out any who were weak. Some species even considered the tests deadly. No human had ever faced them. Ethan felt fear again, but it was mixed with determination. He remembered Princess Celira's words: courage, loyalty, and heart could change the galaxy. He had proven it before, and he would prove it again. The first test was on a world known for its extreme conditions. The planet, called Raxil Prime, was a Class 14 death world. Its gravity was stronger than most species could handle, its storms were violent, and its wildlife was deadly. The test required participants to survive for 7 days with minimal equipment while completing specific tasks assigned by the council. It was designed to push them physically and mentally to the brink. When Ethan landed on Raxil Prime, he could feel the planet trying to break him. Each step was heavier than the last. The wind cut against his skin like blades. The ground was uneven and treacherous, filled with hidden holes and creatures that could attack without warning. Other species who had attempted the test before had fallen on the first day. Many had died, but Ethan did not stop. He had survived hardships on Earth that were smaller but not easier. He had climbed mountains, faced storms, and endured hunger. He had learned to adapt. On Raxil Prime, he used every skill he had. He studied the movements of the wildlife, avoided dangerous areas, and built shelters from the minimal resources available. He moved slowly, carefully, conserving energy while staying alert. The days were long and exhausting. He faced storms that could knock a grown alien off its feet, creatures that lunged with sharp teeth and claws, and hunger that gnawed at him constantly. At one point, he thought he could not continue. His muscles ached and his mind felt foggy, but he remembered the princess. He remembered her calm eyes, the way she had accepted his wish, and the belief she had placed in him. That thought gave him strength. He pushed forward step by step, refusing to give up. By the fourth day, council observers were amazed. They had expected a human to fail almost immediately. They had expected him to be crushed by the gravity, killed by the wildlife, or overwhelmed by exhaustion. But Ethan adapted. He used his body and mind in ways that were unusual for a human, but that worked. He moved with care, thought ahead, and survived. On the sixth day, he faced the most dangerous challenge of all. A massive storm swept across the region, the likes of which even the oldest Raxil natives had not seen in decades. Trees were torn from the ground, rivers flooded, and lightning struck unpredictably. Many species would have sought shelter and waited it out. But part of Ethan's task was to retrieve a specific item from the center of the storm, a crystal that symbolized endurance. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward. The storm was punishing. The wind tore at his clothes and nearly knocked him down. Rain cut across his face and lightning lit up the sky in blinding flashes, but he kept moving. Step by step he advanced, ignoring the pain, ignoring the fear. Finally, he reached the crystal. With trembling hands, he picked it up and held it high, letting the storm rage around him. The observers were silent. They had expected a human to fail before the first night. They had expected him to be a weak species, unfit for this test. Yet here he stood, in the middle of a storm that could kill most aliens, holding the symbol of endurance. For the first time, many began to see humans differently. The next test was mental and emotional. The council designed a series of challenges meant to confuse and frustrate participants. They created illusions, false scenarios, and moral dilemmas. Many nobles had failed, not because they lacked intelligence, but because their pride and arrogance blinded them. Ethan faced rooms filled with shifting walls, mirrors that distorted reality, and illusions that tried to trick him into harming others. He felt panic at first, but he slowed his breathing. He remembered his training on Earth. Stay calm, think clearly, trust your instincts. He focused on what he knew to be real, ignored the illusions, and solved the puzzles one by one. In one test, he was faced with a moral dilemma. Two creatures were trapped in a collapsing chamber. One was native to the planet, one was a visitor from another species. The system gave him a choice: save one or risk both dying. Ethan refused to choose selfishly. He quickly assessed the structure and found a way to save both creatures. Many species had failed this test because they would choose what benefited themselves or their status. Ethan's solution was simple but effective. He acted with care and courage, and he succeeded where others had failed. The final test of the Council series was designed to break participants psychologically. They created scenarios meant to threaten the princess directly. Ethan was placed in a simulation where she was in danger from assassins, fires, and traps. Many nobles froze, unable to act under the pressure of seeing someone they were supposed to protect in immediate danger. Ethan did not freeze. He felt fear, yes, but he did not let it control him. He observed the scenario carefully, planned his moves, and acted quickly. He dodged traps, guided the princess to safety, and neutralized the threats with whatever tools he had. Every step he took was measured, precise, and calm, even as his heart raced. When the test ended, the council was speechless. They had designed these challenges to expose weakness, and yet the human had passed all of them. not with brute force or sheer size, but with intelligence, courage, adaptability, and heart. He had survived environments that were impossible, solved puzzles that were meant to confuse, and acted with loyalty and care where others had failed. Word spread quickly across the galaxy. Humans were no longer considered small or weak. Stories of Ethan's trials reached planets far and wide. Scholars wrote about his endurance. Military leaders studied his strategies. Diplomats whispered in council halls about what it meant for humans to succeed in ways no one had predicted. Even Princess Salira noticed the change. She had always known humans were remarkable, but seeing Ethan endure tests meant to break even the strongest species confirmed her belief. She walked beside him through the embassy halls, proud and calm, letting others see that the human by her side had earned his place. Ethan felt something new. He felt the quiet power of respect forming around him. Not fear, not anger, but respect. He had not sought it, and yet it was coming. Humans were being noticed, and he was leading the way, but the challenges were not over. Other species, jealous of his success, began to plot. Some tried to discredit him, saying he had cheated or used tricks. Others challenged him to duels or competitions in hopes of proving humans unworthy. Ethan faced these challenges quietly, never boasting, never underestimating the danger. He met each test with focus, courage, and patience. Through it all, he learned more about his own species. Humans were not the strongest or fastest. They were not the oldest. But they were clever. They could endure. They could think creatively. And above all, they had hearts that refused to give up. The galaxy had seen it in him, and it could no longer be ignored. By the end of this period, Ethan had passed trials, challenges, and tests meant to break him. He had survived Raxil Prime, solved puzzles designed to confuse the cleverest species, and protected Princess Salira when she was threatened. The Council had no choice but to recognize his achievements. Humans had proven themselves capable of greatness, not through weapons or fleets, but through courage, loyalty, and heart. Ethan stood on the balcony once more, looking out at the stars. The galaxy had begun to change its opinion of humans. They were no longer small and weak. They were being watched. They were being respected. And somewhere deep inside him, Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. The trials had taught him many things. They had taught him that fear could be overcome. That strength was not always measured in muscle or size. That intelligence and creativity could match even the oldest species. And most of all, they had taught him that humans could survive where others failed, not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to give up. Princess Salira came to stand beside him, as calm as ever. "You have done more than prove yourself," she said softly. "You have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of, and you have shown me why I chose you." Ethan nodded, feeling pride and humility at the same time. He had survived the impossible. And as he looked at the stars, he realized that humans, underestimated and overlooked for so long, were finally stepping into their place in the galaxy. For the first time, he believed that humans could stand among the oldest and strongest species, and even change the galaxy in ways no one had imagined. After surviving the Council's tests, Ethan Cole thought he understood the princess's choice. He had proven courage, endurance, intelligence, and loyalty beyond any other species. He had endured storms, predators, illusions, and impossible dilemmas. And yet, Princess Salira had asked him to stay by her side. Still, there was a quiet question lingering in his mind. Why him? Why a human? One evening, the princess invited him to a private garden on the orbital palace. The garden floated in a massive chamber, surrounded by glass walls that revealed the galaxy in all its wonder. Stars twinkled, nebulae glowed, and distant ships moved like tiny fireflies. It was silent except for the soft hum of the station's life support. Ethan had never seen such beauty, and he realized it mirrored the calm power of the princess herself. "You've passed the trials," she said quietly, her eyes tracing the stars. But that is not why I chose you, Ethan blinked. It's not, I thought proving myself would show you I was worthy. She shook her head gently. That was part of it, yes. But it was not the main reason. I chose you because I saw something in humanity that is rare across the galaxy. Something powerful that no weapon, no fleet, no army can create. Ethan felt a knot in his stomach. He wanted to understand, but words failed him. The princess's calm voice continued. I have observed your species for many years. I have studied your behavior, your choices, and your history. Humans are young. You are small and fragile compared to older species. Yet I saw courage in the smallest actions, intelligence in the simplest solutions, and loyalty deeper than some of the oldest bloodlines. He swallowed hard. You mean you studied humans before you even met me? Yes, she said softly. I wanted to see who would rise in a species like yours. I wanted to see what your people could do when they were pushed to the edge, and I found something extraordinary. Ethan looked at her, trying to find words. He felt pride, but also a new weight of responsibility. Humans had always been underestimated. The galaxy had rarely noticed them except to mock or dismiss. And now the princess, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, had chosen one of them. Chosen him. You don't need to fear, she said, as if reading his thoughts. I did not choose you because of what you might gain, but because of what humans could give the galaxy. Humans adapt. Humans endure. Humans bond deeply and fight for what they love. I needed someone with a heart like yours, and I found it. Ethan felt warmth rise in his chest. Her words were not empty praise. She had observed, studied, and understood humans in a way no one else had. And now she had chosen him not for status, not for politics, but for who he was. Why now? He asked quietly. Why choose a human at this moment? The princess turned her gaze to him, calm and steady. Because the galaxy is changing. Empires are strong, yes, but they are blind to something new. Humans can change the balance without fleets, without armies. They can survive where others fail, bond where others divide, and endure where others collapse. I wanted to see that strength close. I wanted to see it for myself. And now I have. Ethan felt the weight of her words. He had survived trials, faced storms and illusions, endured hunger, pain, and danger. And all of it had proven what she already believed. Humans were capable of greatness in ways the galaxy could not predict. But why me? He asked. Why a single human? There must be thousands, millions, she smiled faintly. It is not the number, it is the choice. I could have studied thousands and still found one who reflected what I sought. I found you, Ethan Cole, because you were true to yourself. You did not hide, you did not cheat, you did not fear the truth of your heart. That is what I respect most. That is what I chose. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He had never been praised in this way. On Earth, he had worked quietly, unnoticed. He had trained, studied, and endured, but no one had ever recognized his heart before. Now, a princess from a powerful empire had not only noticed it, but chosen it, chosen him. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Then say nothing, she said softly. Your actions have already spoken. Your courage, your loyalty, your persistence, they have already told the story of who you are. The quiet garden seemed to hold its breath. Ethan looked out at the galaxy, at stars, planets, and ships moving in distant silence. He realized then that the princess's words were not only about him. They were about humanity. For centuries, humans had been underestimated. For centuries, they had been dismissed. And yet they had endured. They had survived wars, disasters, and countless challenges on a fragile world. And now the galaxy was beginning to see it. You understand then? The princess asked. I think I do, he said slowly. You see humans differently than anyone else. You see what we could be. She nodded. Yes, and that is why I chose you. Not because you are perfect, not because you are strong, but because you are human. You reflect the heart of your species, the truth of what humanity can do when it is pushed to the edge. Ethan felt a mixture of pride and fear. Pride because the princess had recognized something valuable in humans, and fear because now the eyes of the galaxy were on him. Every choice he made, every action would reflect not just on him, but on his species. Humans were no longer minor players. They were being watched, judged, and tested in ways they had never experienced before. But what happens now? He asked. The Council, other species, they might not accept this. They will have to, she said. You have proven your strength. You have shown your heart. Humans cannot be ignored anymore. The galaxy is watching and it must adjust to what it sees. And you, Ethan, will lead by example. He looked at her, stunned. Lead by example. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. He had never sought power. He had never wanted fame or recognition. And yet, here he was, standing at the edge of a galaxy that was beginning to notice humans for the first time. And he could no longer hide from it. Days turned into weeks, and the princess began introducing Ethan to more aspects of her world. She showed him the palace archives, the secrets of diplomacy, and the strategies used by empires to control trade, politics, and war. She taught him to observe, to think ahead, and to use patience as a weapon as strong as any fleet. Ethan learned quickly. Humans might be young in the galaxy, but they were fast learners. They adapted to challenges, and he found that he could hold his own among species far older and more experienced. Still, there were dangers. Not all species welcomed humans stepping into this new light. Some sent assassins disguised as diplomats. Others tried to manipulate the council to undermine the engagement. Ethan faced threats daily, and the princess stood by him, calm and unshaken. Each challenge reinforced what he already knew. Humans survived because they refused to give up. They endured when others fled. They adapted when others broke. One evening, an alarm sounded in the palace. A small strike team of mercenaries had infiltrated the orbital station, aiming to kidnap the princess and discredit the human liaison. Ethan moved faster than he had thought possible. He shielded her with his body, guided her through hidden passages, and neutralized the threat using a combination of quick thinking and human ingenuity. By the time security forces arrived, the intruders were defeated. The princess watched quietly, her calm gaze never leaving him. You see, she said later, your courage and your instincts are not just for yourself, they are for humanity. You are showing the galaxy that humans can protect what is important, that they can endure danger, and that they are not weak. Ethan nodded, exhausted but determined. He realized that her words were not empty praise. The attacks, the tests, the council's doubts, they were all part of a larger truth. Humans were underestimated because the galaxy had never truly seen them. And now, through him, the galaxy was beginning to understand. Weeks passed and Ethan's reputation grew. Stories of his endurance, his courage, and his loyalty spread across space. Other species began to watch humans differently. Some still doubted, but many began to study them, to try to understand how a species so young and small could endure challenges that had crushed older, stronger races. Through it all, Princess Celira remained by his side. She guided him, taught him, and trusted him. And in return, Ethan protected her, respected her, and proved that her choice had been right. Together, they became a symbol of something new in the galaxy. That strength is not only measured in fleets or armies, but in courage, heart, and loyalty. One night, as they stood on the balcony looking out at the stars, Ethan spoke softly. I think I understand now. You did not choose me because of what I have done, but because of what humans can do, because of what I can show the galaxy. She smiled faintly, her calm eyes reflecting the starlight. Yes, and now, Ethan, the galaxy will learn, and humans will rise in ways that cannot be ignored. Ethan nodded, feeling a quiet power rising within him. The trials, the challenges, the dangers, they had all led to this. Humans were no longer overlooked. They were no longer dismissed. They were being seen, studied, and respected. And through him, they had a place in the galaxy they had never imagined. He realized that the princess had chosen wisely. And he knew that together, they would face the challenges ahead, changing the galaxy in ways that would be remembered for generations. The day of the wedding arrived with a quiet intensity that stretched across the galaxy. Ethan Cole had never imagined himself standing beside a princess, let alone marrying one. The events of the past months, the trials, the council's debates, the threats, and the revelations, had led to this moment. Humanity, once overlooked and underestimated, was finally stepping into the spotlight, and he was at its center. The palace was alive with preparations. Alien species from distant worlds arrived, each one curious, skeptical, or cautious. Some still whispered doubts about a human standing beside a princess. Others had come to witness history, hoping to see the future unfold before their eyes. The halls of the orbital palace shimmered with light, banners, and colors that represented dozens of empires. Yet among all this grandeur, Ethan felt a calm focus. He had faced impossible trials, survived dangerous worlds, and protected the princess from harm. Now, he simply had to be himself. Princess Celira met him in the private chambers before the ceremony. She was calm, elegant, and radiant. Her presence was the same as when he had first met her, quiet, steady, and impossible to ignore. Ethan felt a surge of nervousness and pride. All the council, all the species, all the galaxy, they were watching. And here he was, a human, ready to take a place no one had ever imagined a human could. "You are ready," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. Ethan nodded. "I think so. I hope I do everything right." "You have done more than right," she said, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "You have proven your courage, your loyalty, and your heart. That is enough. Everything else will follow." The ceremony hall was massive, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Ethan could feel the weight of their gazes, some curious, some skeptical, some admiring. But he focused on the princess, on the calm strength she radiated. She had chosen him, and that choice was enough. The officiant, a tall and dignified alien with deep blue skin and silver eyes, began the ceremony. They spoke in the formal language of the Aurelian conquered, and Ethan followed the translation carefully. The words were ancient, formal, and heavy with meaning. They spoke of loyalty, endurance, courage, and the bonds that tie two beings together across time and space. When it was Ethan's turn, he spoke simply, clearly, and from his heart. "I promise to stand by you, to protect you, and to be true to my word. I do not know what the galaxy holds, but I will face it with courage, loyalty, and honesty. I choose you now and always." The hall was silent, the weight of history pressing down on every listener. Then Princess Celira spoke, her voice steady and calm. "I accept your promise. I choose you, Ethan Cole, not because of power or wealth, but because of the truth I see in your heart. Together, we will face the galaxy and show what humans can be." A ripple of reaction spread through the audience. Some species whispered among themselves, unsure whether to accept this new reality. Others nodded quietly, recognizing the courage it took for a human to speak such words before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. For Ethan, the moment felt surreal. He had gone from a quiet liaison to a symbol of human potential, standing beside a princess who had chosen him. The ceremony continued, rituals and blessings unfolding with elegance and tradition. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy participated, some offering gifts, others chanting blessings, and some simply watching in awe. Ethan moved through the ceremony with calm focus, knowing that every action, every gesture represented not just him, but all of humanity. After the formalities, the newlyweds stepped onto the balcony to greet the galaxy. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and the sight was breathtaking. Ships from distant worlds hovered nearby, some sending beams of light as a gesture of respect, others observing silently. Humans on Earth and in distant colonies had been notified of the wedding, and broadcasts carried the image of a human standing beside a princess across star systems. Ethan looked at Princess Celira. "I can't believe this is real," he he whispered. "It is," she replied, her calm smile reassuring him. "And it is only the beginning." The reception that followed was unlike anything Ethan had ever experienced. Species who had once doubted humans approached him, asking questions, offering congratulations, and observing carefully. Many still whispered their skepticism, but there was a new tone: respect. Humans were no longer invisible. Humans were no longer dismissed. They were noticed. They were studied. They were recognized. Ethan realized something important as he moved among the guests. The trials, the dangers, the threats, they had not only tested him, they had changed the galaxy's perception of humans. Species who had ignored Earth or laughed at its people now had to acknowledge that humans were capable of courage, loyalty, and intelligence beyond expectation. And through him, humanity had gained a place in the galaxy it had never imagined. Princess Sailira stayed close to him, observing the reactions of the guests. "You have shown them," she said quietly. "Humans cannot be ignored anymore." "I did not do it for recognition," Ethan said softly. "I only wanted to survive, to protect you, to stay true to myself." "And that is why it worked," she said, her voice calm but firm. "True strength is not shown through force or pride. It is shown through courage, loyalty, and heart. You have shown all three, and now the galaxy has no choice but to notice." As the night went on, celebrations continued, but Ethan's mind wandered to the future. The galaxy had changed. Humans had entered a new stage, one where they would no longer be underestimated. The presence of a human beside a princess of the Aurelian conquered was more than symbolic. It was proof. Proof that humans could endure, adapt, and rise above challenges. He thought of the young humans on distant colonies, of children who had never believed they could matter in galactic affairs. They would hear of this day and understand that being human was no longer a limitation. Humans could stand among the oldest and strongest species and survive. Humans could lead, protect, and endure. A commotion near the hall drew his attention. A group of alien dignitaries approached cautiously, their expressions unreadable. Ethan tensed, expecting doubt or confrontation, but instead they bowed slightly, their voices formal but respectful. "You have shown remarkable courage," one said. "Humans are different than we expected. Your presence beside the princess changes many things. It is noted." Ethan nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. Recognition from skeptics was more meaningful than praise from allies. Humans had earned their place, not through fleets or weapons, but through heart and determination. The night deepened, and the celebrations continued. Music played, lights shimmered, and beings from hundreds of worlds shared stories, laughter, and cautious admiration. Ethan moved through it all, never forgetting the journey that had brought him here. From a quiet liaison to a human chosen by a princess, from surviving trials to standing before the galaxy, he had seen what humans could do when they were true to themselves. Later, in the quiet hours of the night, Ethan and Princess Sailira returned to the balcony. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, a vast expanse of stars, planets, and possibilities. "We did it," Ethan said softly, still in awe. "No," she replied, her calm gaze steady. "You did it. Humans did it, and this is only the beginning." He looked at her, understanding the weight of her words. The trials, the wedding, and the recognition were only the first steps. Humans had shown the galaxy that they were capable, but now they would have to prove it every day, in every challenge, in every decision. And he would be their representative, standing beside the princess, showing what it meant to endure, adapt, and lead. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling both pride and responsibility. The stars stretched endlessly before him, and for the first time he felt that humanity had a place among them, not as observers, not as minor players, but as equals. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that the galaxy would never forget this day. Humans had been chosen. Humans had endured. Humans had risen. And the story of Ethan Cole, the human who stood beside a princess, would be remembered for generations as the moment humanity became a force to be respected, watched, and admired. As the first light of a distant sun touched the palace, Ethan felt a quiet certainty. Challenges would come, doubt would remain, and danger would never disappear. But humans had something the galaxy could not ignore: courage, loyalty, heart, and the ability to rise against impossible odds. He looked at Princess Sailira and smiled. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we face it together." She smiled back, calm and certain. "Together," she said, and together they stepped forward, ready to face the galaxy. Humans had arrived, and the stars themselves seemed to watch in quiet acknowledgement of a species that would no longer be underestimated.